Welcome to the future, you guys. Sorry, we are a little bit late. I apologize. The reason why we're late today is because of our guest. I'm not one to blame other people, or maybe I am. We have Fabian Geyrhalter. He's on the show, and he's live here in the studio with us, you guys. And he's going to talk to you about how to turn any venture into an admired brand. Now, if you work for a boring company, or you are a boring company, he's going to give you 5 tips on how you can turn any brand into one that consumers love. So the reason why we have Fabian on our show today is because, well, if you weren't able to attend Art Center's Bold event, he gave this awesome talk, and I've invited him to come on the show to give that same talk, or maybe he'll embellish it a little bit because we have a little bit more time to do this. And here's a couple of things I know about Fabian. One, he's a brand strategist. He's the founder and principal of Finian, a company in Long Beach, strategy design consultancy. He's a columnist for Forbes, Inc., and published in the Washington Post, Mashable, Entrepreneur, and the Huffington Post. He's a speaker, and he's spoken all throughout the world, and he's a Global 100 mentor. I don't even know what that means, but it sounds super fancy, super fancy. He's also written the #1 Amazon bestseller, How to Launch a Brand. But today, we're gonna keep it real, we're gonna keep it raw, and we're gonna roll the titles. Erica, please. Thanks for coming on the show. Now, some of you guys don't know this, but Fabian and I, we know each other. We went to Art Center together, not exactly at the same time, but we were speaking on a panel, and now I've come to know you, and we've hung out for a couple of dinners now over the years. I want to talk to you about bigger than this. And for those of you guys that find a lot of value in this conversation today, I will be dropping our special Amazon affiliate link for you guys to buy the copy of the book. It's only $14.95, and that's a steal to me. Fabian, take it away. I'm going to turn over the show to you. The Austrians are now in control.
Awesome. I love it. The Austrians are in control. So the fake news is over. I was actually on time, just making sure. All right. Let's talk about how to turn any venture into an admired brand. So that may be something that you can apply to your own business if you're a designer, if you have a small company, or you can apply it to your clients, which would be great because you would start leading with brand strategy. This is what it seems to take today, right? Innovation and technology. All we do is we fall in love with whatever is faster, newer, and whatever is the latest, right? Whatever is more convenient, that is the type of brand that we start following over and over again. And those are the type of brands that we actually admire. So today I'm gonna chat with you guys about neither of that. No innovation, no technology, not even design, which Chris knows and a lot of people know is very dear to my heart. I'm going to talk about a new crop of companies that I discovered that are based on complete commodity type products, right? So what products? They have pretty much no differentiator on the product or service level, but yet people go crazy over them. And so the amazing thing that comes out of that is that they have that one thing that all the tech companies ache to have. They have an emotional connection at the very beginning. So when these brands launch, when these startups launch, people fall in love with them. No design, no tech, no innovation. And that's pretty amazing. And so if they can do it, imagine what anyone can do, a creative entrepreneur, any company, if they take one or two of these pieces of advice from those type of companies. So I did what one has to do, and I wrote a book about it. And I tried to feature this book as long and as often as possible on your show, Chris. So I'm just going to leave that slide on for like 20 minutes. Oh, I already got cut out. That doesn't work, so I just tried that. So it was the logical step to write a book. The way that I approached it is I went on a diet of Fast Company, Harvard Business Review, MIT, Inc., Entrepreneur, and I read at least one magazine every night for a good 5 months. And I cut out all the articles that actually talk about commodity type products in those type of magazines, right? So that's how I cheated. But usually there was maybe one of those companies in every 2 or 3 magazines because everything is about tech, right? I was amazed that I was able to fill 200 pages. Of course, there's a very big typography, and you guys and gals know that. You're type people. It's very big fat type, but still 200 pages full of commodity products that people go crazy over these days. That to me was really, really exciting. So I distilled it into 8 traits, and I know that Chris said I'm only going to share 5 with you today, and that was not fake news. That was correct. I'm only going to share 5 with you today. There's 2 reasons. One is you would never buy my book if I share all 8 traits, obviously, right? And the second one is you're most probably going to fall asleep after a monologue of 30 minutes of anyone, maybe Chris or myself. That's just a long, mighty time. So let's jump into the 5 different ones. Let's make sure, though, to remember that if you take one of those traits, any one of them, you take 1, you take 2, you take 5, you might take all 8. If you take them into account, make sure that you continuously infuse them into your venture, right? You have to keep walking the walk and talking the talk. And that's how people get to know that you stand for that trait. Okay, here's the first one. It's also the most obvious one. Storytelling has been part of branding forever. And it used to be advertising, right? Storytelling for companies used to be called advertising. Fake personas selling fake benefits. And now, thanks to social media and thanks to a change in a mindset of the next generation, I'm talking about millennials, I'm talking about Generation C, stories are real. Brand stories have to be real today. And that's why, in my eyes, and that would be a drum roll moment, I believe that the new advertising is actually branding. I believe that branding replaced advertising because now brands have to be real. Okay, first case study, most probably one you never heard of, I assume. They have a commodity product, which I hope I can still call fish a commodity product. I hope it's always going to be a commodity product, right? What Fish People Seafood does is they create no thrills, chowders, bisques, bouillons. There's no celebrity chef. There's no packaging innovation whatsoever. It's just fish stew in pouches that you throw into hot water, and after a couple minutes you take it out and then you devour it. And most of the time what you do is you eat it by yourself, because as you can see on that packaging on the very bottom, it says serves 1 hungry person. So most likely the only thing next to you is a cell phone or a tablet, or a cell phone that looks like a tablet, which is pretty much how big cell phones are today. And you are going to trace your fish because the company asks you to do so on the packaging. So you are entering these 7 digits to actually get to know the people in Fish People. And I just want to make sure you understand this is not high tech, right? There's no QR code, there's no technology. You literally have to go to the website, type it in cumbersomely, and then you actually get to know the people who are behind Fish People Seafood. So let's start with the first person you're going to meet. If this is the person who actually was involved in your batch of seafood. Here's Stefano. Stefano actually was the guy who lifted your fish, that's part of your pouch, out of the boat. Okay, so he is not a supermodel, even though he could be today. He's looking pretty sharp. But he took the fish out of Ryan's boat. Here's Ryan. He's a good-looking guy. He's a good motion shot, I think. Maybe Chris would appreciate that. I think it's very candid. And the two of them were fundamentally part of getting you the food that you have in front of you. So that's pretty romantic. And in the end, you also get to know what's most important. You get to know the exact location where your fish was actually coming from. So you know that on this date, at this time, I don't know, like right off the Vancouver Islands, these guys, Stefano and Ryan, of course there are more guys and maybe gals, part of this crew, they got the fish onto the Sunset Charge, which is Ryan's romantically named boat. And once you actually plug that code into the computer, and once you actually start getting this story, you really are hooked, and that is a pun, on the brand, right? You're absolutely hooked on the brand. And again, there's nothing new to the company. It's just fish stew. But because of that story that they're telling, you feel 100% at ease with the product, and you know people actually really care. All right, what are the commandments? Like, what do you have to do? If you feel like story is at the heart of your company, it's at the heart of your client's company, well, first of all, look back. right? Like look back, because story is in your roots. Or if you're working for clients, it's in the roots of the founder and co-founder. Interview them, right? Like see, what was that passion? What was the big vision? Like, why does there need to be yet another company in this world, right? I mean, the world does not need more products, right? The world does not need especially more commodity type products. But if you have a story and if there's a reason for people to connect with you over it, make sure you keep talking about it, right? Next one, learn from other verticals. Designers talk to designers. Designers are in designer podcasts. Wait, keep doing that. Be on Chris's podcast. That's good. Don't change that. But look outside, right? I mean, who would study a seafood company to get inspired to tell your own story about transparency or about your beliefs or about so many other traits that I'm going to dive into? Make sure you're not in a bubble, because that is what's happening with Silicon Valley right now, right? Silicon Valley thinks, and they think together and they design for each other. And very, very, very many people are just left out of that entire process. Okay, so shake it up a little bit. If your story is as strong as fish people seafood story, then make it your positioning. This could turn into your brand positioning. And I know Chris talks a lot about brand positioning. I do as well. It's so important. In the end, it's just one sentence. It's one thought. It's 3 words, right? And for fish people, it's already in their name. Fish and people, this is what we're about, right? It's bare bones. This is all real. So make it part of your positioning and then weave it into everything you say and everything you do. People see so many messages every day, right? I mean, I don't even know how many messages a person sees. I know it used to be, I think, 5,000 or 10,000 logos a day. And now imagine with social media, you're getting bombarded. So if you have a great story, keep hitting people over the head with it. All right. Second trait that I found amongst those commodity type, boring companies, shared values, belief. What if values are actually bigger than the product? And I'm going to explain that in a second. But I do want to share one little tidbit. 90% of Generation C, and Generation C is the generation after millennials. So we're not caring about millennials anymore. That's like 5 minutes ago. Now it's all about Generation C. It's the next young generation. 90% of them are only loyal to brands that share their values, only loyal to them. Meaning, if they start learning about what the brand stands for, and it stands for something that they stand for, they are going to keep buying and supporting that one brand. So it's super important. And if not, they're on to the next big thing. Okay. Here's a case study that you have not heard of, period, 100%. Well, you do have a lot of German fans, Chris, right?
We have at least 3.
Okay, I don't know if that's a lot. I hope not. So you do have a slight fraction of German fans. GEA is an Austrian company. What they produce is they produce shoes, which hopefully in the Western world I can see as a commodity product, but also because there's no design innovation with these shoes. It's handmade, long-lasting, easy to repair type traditional footwear. So these GEA shoe stores are around 52 stores in Austria, where I'm from, and my accent as well. That kind of works that way. and Germany and Switzerland. So in all of these German-speaking countries, they've got these stores. So he's doing well. 52 stores. Here is he. He is Heini Staudinger, and the company very much evolves around him. He boldly voices his opinions on hot topics such as politics, religion, the economy, and he, who actually sells shoes in 52 stores, condemns consumerism and capitalism. Okay, think about this, right? So here's a guy selling commodity type products, a lot of them in a lot of stores, and he condemns consumerism and capitalism. And here's how he gets away with it, quite successfully so. His company publishes, his shoe company, may I remind you, publishes a political newspaper called Brennstoff. So for all the other than the 3 potential listeners who might know what Brennstoff means, it means fuel. So looking at those 2 covers, you get a pretty good idea without speaking German what that magazine is about, right? It's highly charged politically. Here, Heini is in an interview, and he's got this ginormous banner behind him that reads, "Rights to the people rather than the banks." Okay, so now let's backtrack a little bit and think about belief and think about how many friends he makes in the government. Politicians hate him, right? Banks absolutely loathe him. He can't even get any loans anymore. No one wants to give him money from the financial institutions because of the way that he shares his beliefs so passionately. But guess who absolutely loves him? People. They love him so much, especially a certain tribe. They are going absolutely crazy over his companies. And it's not even because of the shoes. I'm sure the shoes are great, but there's no innovation. They go crazy because they have shared values. So now his company is getting so much crowdfunding that he doesn't even know how to open up more stores. So now he's founding an academy, which is such a logical next step. What are the belief commandments? Well, one thing is for sure. And I think anyone on the other end of this monologue knows that values are bigger than the product, right? You know that if you infuse a brand with more value, not financial value, I'm talking about, personal value. If you infuse it and you make it stand for something more than just the one thing that it offers, you will sell more, right? Shared values sell more. So it's never a bad idea to stand for something. Now, how far you take that, if you take it as far as Heini shouting at us with Gea, that's up to you. You have to understand your customer. If you know that you have a tribe there that would wholeheartedly follow you because of your firm beliefs, then voice your passionate beliefs. They actually can turn into your brand's passion. All right, I'm throwing in a trait here. It's a trait called delight, which I usually don't do, but because we have such a visually inclined audience here, I thought I have to throw in delight. Delight is something that you can do so easily, but you can do it so easily wrong as well. And to actually base an entire brand on the idea of delight and to actually disrupt an entire industry by doing so, that's remarkable. And that's what Poppin does. Poppin, I'm pretty sure a lot of you have actually heard of. They are in the commodity product space of really boring, cheap plastic office supplies, right? It's the same old stuff, right? Super mundane industry. And here Poppin came in, and as the name already suggests, they just did the same thing over and over again in 50,000 colors. And they say, you know what? Why does no one have office products that are actually in fun colors? Why don't we bring delight into the offices? Why can't Fabian's company, if it has an orange logo, have only orange stuff on the white desks? Wow, what an easy, cheap way to suddenly create a brand around his own company. What if Jessie really enjoys pink? Why can't she have a pink stapler, right? And by just doing that, and really there's no big innovation, right? I mean, the design is minimally enhanced, but it's really the same stuff. Just by saying this is a mundane industry, it needs a splash of color, and adding a verbal splash of color to it as well, they completely disrupted an industry. So here's the verbal delivery. Here's a really exciting order confirmation that I received after getting my stapler in the mail. Just read this. It's pretty remarkable. We know you and your Poppin stuff are really going to love each other. Right now, our packers are warming up and stretching so that no one gets hurt in the scurry to get your order packed up, shipped out, and delivered across your threshold so that this new chapter of your work happy life can begin. So exciting. All right? I'm getting a stapler, okay? Or maybe I get a plastic pen for $1.50, and that's what I receive. As soon as the calisthenics are done, and calisthenics, by the way, for all of you other listeners who might be a little confused what the word means, it's actually gymnastic exercises to achieve bodily fitness and grace of movement. Yes, I did read this. I had to. As soon as the calisthenics are done, we'll send you a link to track your order so you can keep tabs on it, right? And that's what happens. A couple hours later, I get an email saying, hey, Finian, we know that you and your order are both incredibly excited to see each other. While in the throes of such anticipation, it's totally understandable to lose track of the details, so here they are, okay? So think about this. Before, you ordered something at Office Supplies, you ordered something at Staples, right? What did you get? You get an order confirmation. The first thing you do, you erase it. The first thing you go to the email, you delete it because you're like, oh, perfect, they got it, I've got an order. Done. With Pop-In, you actually dive into it. And so now, logically, after launching with more commodity type products, now they can go into design. Now they can go into workplace design, office furniture, and it's all based on delight. That's the one thing. So if you have a client that is in the mundane segment, and there are plenty of boring segments, especially all of the ones that complain about B2B clients, right? Oh, what a great segment. Like, just go in there and shake them up, right? Where's the bored audience? Find them. Who's not having fun, right? Turn those sad communications into delight. An order confirmation number is the most saddest email that you most probably ever get, right? It's kind of, but it's useful, but it doesn't really need to be an email, right? You don't need to have much text in it. But think about those kind of communications. Those are the ones that more people get than your silly newsletter. No one cares about your newsletter, right? But people get an order confirmation all the time. How about you actually spice it up and you create more of a brand out of your company by doing so? All right, transparency. This is a huge one. I think I've got one more after this, but transparency is such a big one. When trust is bigger than the product. It is such a critical and smart trait for startups these days to cling on to. Because you know what? In the last half an hour or 20 minutes since we started this, most probably another brand screwed up our trust, right? Most probably another politician or one specific politician, most probably, ruined our trust yet again. So if you lead as a brand with transparency, you gain immediate trust, and that's pretty amazing. But you have nothing to hide, right? You have to be exactly who you claim you are, right? So if you say you're a ghost, right? So you get the idea, right? I had to put this GIF in because I could actually watch this for the next 30 minutes, and maybe there are some comments that say, let's do it. I'm totally up for it. We can just keep this going. Okay, I'm moving on. All right. What is a poster child industry known for playing dress up? It is apparel, right? The apparel industry is known to be shady. Where's my stuff made from? Where's the fabric from? Is there child labor involved? What is the money that is actually being made by the people who make the product versus what is the upsell? So Everlane came in and they said, you know what? We are going to create a company that is 100% human. We are going to be completely transparent. We are going to share the who, the why, the what of every single piece of very basic clothing that we actually produce. They even own a framework for auditing their own factories. So they audit and then rate their own factories. And then that framework that they built on how to audit their own factories, they give to other factories. They give to competitors and say, hey, maybe you could actually run a better business as well. And they call it radical transparency. Here's how radical transparency works for a company like Everlane. And then think how to apply that to yourself, right? Transparent pricing, how amazing is that? Like, it tells you this is exactly how much every single part of the journey costs. The materials are $23, the hardware is $2, the labor is $9, etc., etc. So the true cost of that one piece of garment, that one sweater that you might buy, is $38. But no, sorry, you actually have to pay $88, and it kind of hurts, but it kind of makes sense because you know that there's got to be money in between for marketing, advertising, just for upkeep of the entire organization. You're a grown person. You understand that there is a cost involved. So you're okay with that. But then, and here is the absolute magic in this, then you see on the right side that traditional retail actually would charge you $190. So that's a huge difference. So here is a company that says we're completely transparent, so you can trust us, right? We do good stuff with good people, right? And yet our product is so much less expensive than anyone else. What a genius way to find consumer love. Like, people actually love the brand Everlane because they're so transparent. And now you say, well, we're actually much less than all of our competitors. What a great way to say we're inexpensive without at all ever making it look cheap at all. So, funny story, they had a cashmere sweater. Cashmere sweaters are usually pretty expensive. They had a cashmere sweater, best-selling item, which makes sense because it's a little less expensive than the competitors. And they had to find a way of how to produce more of those cashmere sweaters. Once they found a way, of course, they could drop the price. So they actually found a way to drop the price of the best-selling item by $25. So $25 a pop, okay? If you would be a Walmart shareholder or a Target shareholder and they say that their best-selling item, they dropped the $25 in the production cost, so they're going to make a ginormous amount of profits that year. Well, that's not what happens with Everlane. Everlane sent a quick email and saying, hey, from now on, $25 off of our bestseller because we found a way of how to produce them in a tighter way. That is one sure way to create consumer love. All right. Transparency commandments. This is super important. If you say we're going to be 100% transparent, and that could be anyone. I mean, that can be a programmer, that can be a designer, that, it doesn't even matter. If you say, look, the way that I run my business, it's completely transparent and I'm going to share everything with you. Who works on what, how much they make, what the hourly rate is, whatever, right? Like the entire journey is completely transparent. You will gain instantaneous trust. It doesn't even matter if you have done anything yet, right? I mean, obviously, you have to commit fully, but it doesn't even matter if you have done it yet. You will have trust. And if you have trust, you have a huge competitive advantage. Okay? If you're entering a dishonest vertical, or if you have a client in a dishonest vertical, and what do I mean by dishonest vertical? I mean, think about the Wells Fargo stories of the world, right? Financial services, and there's so many fintech companies right now that are really killing it. Well, if you add that brand thinking component of transparency on top of it, you can absolutely crush it. All right. The last trait, I promised. No monologue should ever last too long. Solidarity, the idea that we are with you. So what if there's an entire company based on solidarity and it's so much bigger than the actual product offering? Here's a commodity product. I think it's a commodity because I'm one of those snobs that only thinks West Coast, East Coast, and leaves the rest of the world behind. But if you live in a pretty big city, fitness centers are commodities. I don't know if they're more fitness centers or breweries right now that are happening in big cities, but both of them, I just don't need one more. Especially with fitness centers, if they have the same old equipment, right? Same treadmills, same workouts, there's no innovation whatsoever. So here comes Planet Fitness, and they painted their treadmills pink, but that's not it. Wait, there's more. Planet Fitness says we don't judge. We are a judgment-free zone. If you come in here, there are no critics, right? So if you're a couple 100 pounds, overweight, it's fine, come on in. If you've never been to a gym, come on in. If you've got treadmill anxiety and you're scared that treadmill is going to catapult you through the air if you hit the start button, don't worry. We're with you. You belong. We're in this together. It's empathetic brand love based on solidarity. But you have to walk it. It's not just slogans. You have to walk it. So here, when you walk into a Planet Fitness, you might as well be greeted by muffins or by donuts. And this, by the way, is 100% cream cheese, not fat-free. Yeah, this is the real deal. You might see candy or chocolate. They actually tweeted a couple of months ago, but now I'm sure it's a year ago. They sent a tweet saying, why candy at the front desk? Because nothing brings people together like chocolate. That's pretty amazing. That's a fitness center. That's a gym. They have over 6 million members, and that already is old news too, I'm sure, but now it's 7 million members. Why? Because they figured out that there's actually a group that they can support. And you can do the same thing, right? Support a subgroup. Every single fitness center is like, hey, you're going to have a six-pack. And they're like, hey, you know what? You can drink a six-pack. And that's okay. You just need to survive. You just need to do something in order for you not to become stale and rotten, right? Support a subgroup. For designers, that is such a huge thing. And I'm sure Chris has talked on one of his 7 billion shows about this, right? Go into the credit union space and become the design firm known for credit union designs, right? Go in there. Go to every single conference. Be the number one for a subgroup. You will become the niche leader. There's absolutely no way. If you do it right, and if you dedicate yourself to that, to a subgroup, you'll become the niche leader. See how much Planet Fitness, in a space that is so competitive, just blows up. It's amazing. But you have to obviously exemplify your tribe's values, right? In everything you do and everything you say. All right. So Here are the 8, all 8 of them. I did not talk about cause, I did not talk about heritage, and I didn't talk about individuality. And that's the carrot that I'm going to leave hanging over your head.
Right. You tease.
Oh,
you
yeah,
tease
that's
us.
how you do it. I have to be a marketer, right? If I'm not a marketer that says he's a marketer, that's bad news, I would say.
I get it.
Oh, thank you very much. I think we had a purchase. My job here is done. I'm out of here. More than one. I don't need to sell more than one. I'm very modest. So what all of these brands that I talked to you about in the last couple of minutes, it's all about asking the question, what was bigger than their offering? Like, what else is in their DNA? And what can they actually use that's strong enough that they can move into their brand DNA? Right? That's how you create a brand DNA. And I really believe that if these type of companies, and that's why I'm so fascinated by those otherwise boring companies, if they can disrupt entire industries without any innovation, any new tech, any new design, you can do it too, 100%. And that to me is the power of brand thinking. Every company is vulnerable, right? Especially startups or very small businesses, right? I mean, you don't know how tech is going to disrupt tomorrow, right? Everything is extremely vulnerable. But even billion-dollar companies, they just fall off the face of earth like overnight these days. From startups, they can steal ideas, they can steal employees, they can steal your product, they can offer it for half the price overnight, right? If you start to make your company personable, if you infuse it with heart and soul, then you create a connection. And when you create a connection, your clients will turn into a loyal tribe. And they cannot steal that, right? People can't steal soul. People can't steal your tribe. There might be 10 other guys doing the same thing Chris is doing, but you're going to stick to Chris because I don't know what. No, because you like him, right? There's a brand, there's a connection. We can talk about this more later. But they will prefer your product if you have heart and soul and if you infuse that into your company. It's like a layer of insurance. All right. So my company is Finian. We create strategic, verbal, and visual brand clarity. And here are the 2 books that I wrote. This is actually my second book. And with that, I'm going to change the monologue to a dialogue. And I'm sure we're also going to answer some of your questions.
Let's do it. Thank you very much for doing that.
Of course.
Okay.
It's fun.
Now, I know you're a person who does research, so of course, I'm not going to give you the prepared deck that I usually have. So instead, what I have in front of me, you guys, we're going to start this off. I have a deck of cards here. It's called the Big Talk. It's how to get away from a small talk. And I'm going to draw some cards from here, and I'm going to ask Fabian some questions. But I want to let you guys know, if you guys are watching this on YouTube or on Facebook, Greg and I are monitoring your comments. And as always, Erica is doing a wonderful job cutting the show. We just jumped right to it, guys. So
go, Erica.
Here's your first card. You ready?
Totally not. I'm prepared with my 5 questions. This is not right.
We're friends, so I can do this to you. First question is, okay. It says here, what was your childhood dream? Has it changed?
What was my childhood dream?
I know what it was. It was to appear one day on a YouTube channel and talk about the second book that you wrote.
To have a book that's bigger than all the others. And I did it. I did it. And nothing changed. Perfect. Good. Next question.
No, seriously. Okay, come on. What was your childhood dream?
Seriously. You know, childhood dreams, I mean, they change every year, right? I mean, every year in childhood, you had a dream to do something else. And I think that, you know, it's the typical, from the fireman to the snowboarder to the event producer to the recorder to, you know, the musician. It just constantly changes. I think especially if you're a creative nature, I don't think you grow up and you're like, I want to be I want to work for a big bank in New York. I think you're constantly like, I want to create. And what I have done now is actually going a little bit beyond that, because I'm actually not just creating visually, I create verbally, I do all kinds of things creatively. And so I feel pretty fulfilled. Thank you very much.
Great. Good job on that question. I'm going to give you a bell for that. And you guys hit us with the questions, all right? We're looking at your questions on Facebook and on YouTube. Until then, and Greg, just chime in whenever you're ready. Greg is off camera today because we couldn't get a camera set up.
But I'm here.
He's here. You can hear his voice. Okay, so here's your second question. What advice would you ask for from your greatest hero? So who's the hero, and then what kind of question would you ask them?
So who's the hero?
These are big talk questions, so you can take your time to think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I think that for me, heroes are kind of strange. I'm not someone who has big heroes, but I have a lot of people that I really admire, and usually it's the ones that just pass away, right? Like right now it's Anthony Bourdain. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. What would I ask him, right? Or it's David Bowie, or whoever kind of like you spend a lot of time with, absorbing what they have to offer to the world, and then when they pass, you just have a lot of questions, right? And what would I ask someone like Anthony Bourdain? I guess I would ask what was it really for? Was it all real? Right, the thing, the brand that Anthony Bourdain is of, like, you can live a life like I do, right? And then in reality,
right. So
there's so much more to it, right? To celebrity status and all
that.
But
I think that's very relevant and topical that you bring this up, because you would not guess that there was a darkness or sadness underneath all of that, and so then it wasn't all real, obviously, because people aren't ready to share in a radical, transparent way, as you mentioned in the book.
Yeah. Yeah, great, good downer.
Okay, yeah, good one. Good one. Way to do that.
Yep. Do I get 2 chimes now, or just one?
Just one.
Okay. I want to get to 2. Let's see.
Okay, so here's what I want to do. I want to prompt our audience right now, because I was really inspired by your talk about radical transparency and involving your audience and community into everything that you do. I'm going to throw this out there. If you guys have a question that you want to know, and I'm going to say for the time being, no questions. No holds barred. Ask any kind of question. Nothing's off limits. Ask it of myself, or ask it of Finian or Fabian, and we shall see. We shall see if we're ready to go radically transparent, because I do want to build an admired brand, and I do want to build in a community that loves what we do. So I'm going to prompt you there, but I'm going to move into question number 3. Question number 3. By the way, Fabian, how many languages do you speak?
I speak 2.5. Maybe 2.25. The quarter is French. That left me a long time ago. Yeah. German is easy, and English, was a necessity. So yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So you're not a typical European where you speak like 5 languages.
Yeah. Next cut.
You know what it is? You chose to become an expert.
There you go.
Go deep on a couple and don't worry about the others.
True that.
Okay. Here we go. Question number 3. Is there anybody in your life? Oh, this is too similar. Never mind.
Oh, man.
Okay, here's a good one. What do you hope to achieve in 5 years?
Ooh, that's good.
All right.
Let me bring up my Excel spreadsheet. How long do you have? In the next 5 years, what do I want to achieve? Oh my God, I've got like hundreds, if not thousands of people holding me accountable now. That really blows. Usually it's just myself. That's why I run such a small consultancy, right? You know what? What do I want to do in the next 5 years? I really want to have that perfect balance of creativity and mentoring, right? Like, I want to work on really big strategy projects that fulfill me just as much as my staff and our clients. And I want to keep writing, and I want to keep coming up with ideas that I believe can actually make businesses better businesses, because boy, today we do need better businesses, right? There's a lot of stuff going on right now. So I think that idea of moving even further from like my brand design roots into brand strategy and brand thinking, because I feel like I can reach more people by doing that.
Okay.
So I got a bunch of questions from YouTube, if you guys are ready.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it, Greg.
A lot of them kind of revolve around the same topic, so I'm going to kind of group some together. So Sarab, Jay Smith, and Steph all kind of asked the same question. But how do you onboard clients into this way of thinking about their brand? And how do you deal with brands that don't have a story?
Good question.
Great question.
Wow.
Well, super easy.
You're going to earn your money today. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Buy my book, send it to them. Wait, there's nothing else. I think that's it, beginning end. No, look, I mean, if every company has a story, it's pretty impossible for a company not to have a story, but it's more about uncovering that story, right? It's kind of like people who are completely frantic and anxiety driven, and they say, I don't have zen in me. I don't have I can't relax. It's like, no, you can. You have it in you. You just need to get it out. With companies, it's the same thing, right? There's a reason of how they actually were started, and it comes back to that big vision of the founders and co-founders. Once you actually define that, and most of the time, you really have to get it out of them. So I do these brand intensives with my clients. And it's like 8-hour sessions, and I get it out of them. And so I use exercises of writing a brand positioning statement, of like figuring out the personality of the brand, thinking about what happens with your brand in 10 years, 20, 30, 50 years from now if the brand wouldn't be there anymore. Write a memorial speech for the brand, right? Like, what would people miss about it? So I think the more of these, very, soul-searching type exercises you do with a client, the more empowered they feel to actually let go and to talk about it. And then they suddenly realize that at the heart of it, there is a real story. And it's actually a story that connects with the product and it connects with the audience. Why don't we tell that story? But it is either a lengthy process, or you can just do it really quick like I do, where in a day you kind of like shake them up, and then afterwards they're like, okay, they're so engaged by their own thinking because they never really spent a day doing that they actually go out there and start applying it through marketing and sales and everywhere. And it's important that sales and marketing and all these different departments actually talk the same talk. That's the big thing, right? How do you then sustain that? But I'm going off tangents. Yeah, it's a big question.
I'd love to weigh in on this. Excuse me. So here's the thought, that you're trying to sell your client something, you're trying to convince them of something, and so then you're going to get a lot of resistance. But it is actually in the best interest of the client to be something that's beyond a commodity, because companies that are viewed as commodities compete on price. There's no brand affinity. You would choose whatever is cheaper today. Like if you think about buying corn or cabbage or anything like that, those are commodities, and you just pay whatever the lowest price is. And so it is actually in the best interest of the business to start to think about how to develop their brand so that they can become something that consumers fall in love with. And every company, every person out there actually has a story, but it takes a lot of work, and it takes a very smart person to help them find that story. All right, next question, or should I go on to one of my deeper questions?
Let me pull up another question here, because there's a bunch coming in.
Great.
Okay. So, okay. Kevin asks, how do you determine the cost of providing strategy for brands that are interested in this?
That's a great question. Chris and I can have dinner over dinner about that. Well, Chris, I think you and I share a good story of how we yeah, absolutely.
Right. I'm gonna set up a story, and if I get anything inaccurate or factually incorrect, Fabian, just go along with it. All right.
I'll blurb you out.
All right. So we were both speaking at Santa Monica College, and that's when I got to connect with Fabian, and he was telling me a story about how he had hired a business coach or something like that with David
business
C.
consultant.
Baker. Business consultant. And if you don't mind me sharing, I'm going to tell that story.
Sure.
And we're having dinner, and he's telling me that he's hired this person, and the price was $10,000 for 1 day's worth of work. And that just blew my mind. At that point in time, I was like, how does one get into a position where you're going to pay that $10,000? And I remember having a conversation with Fabian about this, and he was wondering, well, should I go through with it or not? But he did decide to do this. What was really incredible about this kind of multiple part dinner conversation that we had was, one is he was super transparent about what he was doing. He was very open and very sharing, which was really cool. And that he had the guts to just say, you know what? I think I need to go in a different path in my life, and I'm just going to go for it. Not many people would have that kind of fortitude to say, I'm going to spend that money and just go for it. And then he shares what he learned in the entire process. And it left me thinking about my own practice and what it is that I was doing. So he somehow inception via David Baker, in my mind, that I need to go out and find something that's valuable enough that somebody else in the world would pay me $10,000 to do 1 day's worth of work. And sure enough, I knew that the answer had to be in strategic thinking, to get paid for what you think. Because when you're doing something like making a design, making a brochure, an identity, even to do branding, you can't charge so much money for a day's worth of work. Just people won't accept that. So I tried and failed, and I would pitch client after client. I'd love to do brand strategy for you for $10,000. And I got many, many no's until I got my first yes. And this fundamentally transformed the way I thought about myself and the work that we do here. And now I've gone way beyond charging $10,000 for 1 day's worth of work. Back to you, sir.
And that's perfect. And I mean, that really answers the question, because it really depends on how much you feel your advice is worth. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think it's the same with a lot of things, right? Like, what do you think the value is that you give a business? If you design a logo, you give a certain value, depending on how big the company is. If you create strategy, and if you actually define or redefine a brand for the next 10, 20, 30 years, and actually think about how much profit that company might gain based on your insights. On how they actually need to charge forward. And you know that because you're in all these industries, right? And if you're a brand strategist like Chris and I are, you really have to read up everything, right? You just have to be very current. You have to understand what happens in finances, what happens in fashion, what happens everywhere. And so you can come in to a client and you can say, look, you should go into this direction because it just makes so much sense right now. It's just how your clients would actually, or your customers would fall in love with you. How much can you charge for that? Right? It's a big question, and I think a lot of it is about your balls and your guts, right? Woo. Like, what do you say? Chris was like, whoa, can I say 10K? And he did, and it didn't work for a long time. Now he has a different number, and it does work, right? But you kind of have to go step by step. I mean, in the beginning, maybe you just charge a couple $1,000s for like an intro to it, because you too need to first feel like you actually know how to talk the talk, right?
Right. Well, I want to talk about something just to kind of tag on to what you're saying. David Trott wrote this book called 1 + 1 = 3. In it, he talks about being able to connect dots. So as a brand strategist, you have to have a lot of dots to be able to connect, because you're going to walk into a conversation and not knowing exactly where that conversation is going to go. You have to be prepared to take it wherever it needs to go. So if you walk into the conversation only being able to provide identity design, or you're going to build a website for them or something like that, no matter where the conversation goes, it's going to all trail back to identity design and web design. So this is where a brand strategist like Fabian and myself, we can walk around and say, oh, it's interesting. So this is actually an email marketing campaign that's gone wrong, or maybe we had to fix your social media marketing plan, or maybe your customer service or product delivery. One of the things that you talked about in your book was about being able to take the most mundane things and turn into a piece of communication to tell your story. So again, you have to be a little bit of a writer and to be a little bit of a detective to kind of find out what's wrong and to be able to help them solve their problems. Now, there's this question right here coming in from Noah from YouTube, and Noah's asking, what's a good argument to convince a brand to commit to a 100% transparency? How would you approach a client with this? And then 2 smiley faces after that.
You cannot convince anyone to do anything. Right? If you have to convince a client to do something, then most probably, when it comes to brand strategy, right? You can convince a client to go with the red logo versus the green one. You can convince a client to have a website designed a certain way, right? Because you've got facts. But you can't convince someone what their heart and soul of the company should be, right? You basically slowly get them to it. I see it a lot like therapy. Right? You let them talk, and then you steer them into a direction, but you let them say it. So they're like, oh, first of all, it's ownership, right? Like I'm the CEO, I'm the founder. I'm like, oh, I just had this big epiphany, and thank you for helping me get there. And that's huge for designers to know, because it's not about your ego, right? You have to, when you turn into strategy, even though it's bigger thoughts that you give your clients, you have to let go of your ego, right? You just have to give it right all over to the client. And that's how you do it. There's no way that you can force someone into something with brand strategy.
So I have a follow-up question with you, and I love the way you answered that. It mirrors how I feel about it as well, which is you and I, we both went to Art Center. We studied graphic design. Did you learn this idea, this way of thinking at Art Center?
All right, so Art Center are my friends. They're your friends, so I can't say I haven't learned it. But no, I have not. I don't. I think graphic design is seen as something very different. I think graphic design, even the name graphic design, I think is so misleading. It sounds like art. In Europe, at Art Center Europe, there was actually an Art Center Europe that I went to. It was a cool campus in Switzerland. In the beginning, before I came here, they call it communication design. And I think that's so much more of what we do. We don't create graphics. Yes, we do, but we can do them at like 4 a.m, right? Like no one cares. But to create communication design, that means that whatever you do, it needs to communicate something to someone. And now it becomes much closer to strategy. And of course, designers always say, we're strategic thinkers and we're strategic thinkers, but really to actually rethink a strategy of a company to better align with today's values, and then to create a design that can attract people to that story that you're telling. That's pretty exciting. And so no, you don't learn that in design school, really. And I mean, that's something that I always wish I would have learned more. But Art Center was amazing because it got me so much else, right? That other schools would have not gotten me. I mean, they got me to be an amazing designer pretty much right out of the gate, which, happens, not always, and I'm not sure if it happens today at Art Center. I'm not as involved anymore. Maybe Chris can speak on that, or maybe we just go to the next question.
We probably should go to the next question because we're going to get ourselves into trouble here.
Yeah.
But I generally believe that most design schools are a little bit behind this. We're still teaching the trade and the craft and the making of things versus helping to elevate the conversation way beyond what it looks like. So with that, Greg, do you have your question lined up?
I do.
Let's do it.
So I have one from Max, and Max wants to know, how can you be completely transparent and benefit from it as a freelance designer in a B2B environment?
Great question. So I had a consulting call with a small app development shop up in Copenhagen the other day. I wasn't there. It was just a call. I wish I was there. It's such a great city. But he was asking how can he actually differentiate. He's doing great work, and so the more I dug into it, I'm like, what do your clients say about you? Like, how would your clients describe you, the value that you give them? And the more he talked to me, the more I realized that they just really trust this guy. Like, it seems like it's different. They don't outsource to Russia or wherever, right? Like, the people actually sitting there in Copenhagen in this small space, and he can get anyone on the line at all times of his staff. And so when you start realizing that, of like, this is how someone works, then you can say, well, why don't you lead with complete transparency? And why don't you create an entire framework that, and I don't want to give away the idea I give him to every one of you, that wouldn't be fair, but create frameworks, right? Create websites, create portals, create, like notifications, like do things that are part of your contract and part of your proprietary process, because now for once a designer can say they do something that is different, right? Create a process around that and say, for us, it's all about transparency. And here is how everything is going to go down, and you're going to get an email, like every week, and exactly the name of the person that's working on the project. If it's, someone outside of you, if it's you say, like, this is exactly how you track it. However you want to do that, right? It depends on your strategy. Some people don't even track hours, and that's, most probably a wiser idea. But it depends on exactly the freelance business that you're in. I don't know if that answered the question. Chris, did I answer the question?
I don't know. It sounded good to me, though.
Okay, good. It sounded good to me, too.
Okay.
Did it sound good to you?
I liked it, yeah.
Oh, perfect. And that's what matters to me. Because I can only see you channel the YouTube questions.
Right. Okay, so Monica is asking this question. What if the client doesn't see the value after the discovery session because of the work they need to do themselves?
Well, tough luck. I mean, that's the time where... That's the time where when you talk about strategy, they already need to know, that goes back to transparency, they need to know that, hey, look, we're going to do this strategy session, and it could go perfect smooth sailing and we do exactly what we said we would do. Or it could go into bigger realms and we uncover things during that session, and then you would have to commit to saying, you know what, yes, we can get some more out of our marketing budget. Or if there's nothing in the marketing budget, well, there's other budgets. And that's the beauty with strategy. Suddenly you go outside of that one kind of like area of money that you can tap into. Now it could be the sales, budget. It could be communications. It could be wherever a company says this is what we need to do from a strategic brand positioning point of view. So again, don't force anyone on anything. If they say, hey, we're going to jump ship, then you're like, oh, totally fine, jump ship, it's fine. Let's just keep doing the regular thing we're always doing, and that's good. Then either you sucked and your stuff wasn't good enough, right? That they sold it, that they bought it, or they're just afraid, right. And it would be interesting to actually at that point then find out, what are you afraid of, right? Mm-hmm. Like, because usually there's an underlying problem. Mm-hmm. Again, this sounds very therapeutic, but it is true. It
is true. Now, I do want to answer that question too. So I want to add a little bit of nuance and maybe just hit it even harder. So Monica, there's two parts to your question. What if the clients don't find value in strategy? And so then I'm going to have to say, perhaps maybe you didn't do it right. And I know a lot of people use words like branding, strategic, design thinking, user experience design, but truly they don't even know what the heck that is, just because it's a term that's got a lot of buzz behind it. And you think, oh, I'm more powerful, more valuable if I just use those words. So there's talking the talk and there's really walking the walk. So if you're doing discovery and strategy for your clients, you're supposed to help them find something they didn't know. And the value of what they didn't know will depend on how much they think of what the value of the price they should pay. So for example, if you can help them figure out a key customer insight behavior, maybe something on their website is not converting correctly, and you're like, this is why I've been able to figure it out. Now, it would only seem logical then if you solved a big problem and not a small problem. If you solved a big problem, they would invest the resources necessary, because most entrepreneurs, and I have to say most entrepreneurs because sometimes mom and pop businesses are not great entrepreneurs. They're just people who make something and they've accidentally grown a business. But most entrepreneurs realize it takes money to make money, and they're willing to invest in it, and they don't see it as an expense. So there's two problems. One is that maybe you didn't figure it out. And two, the problem you figured out isn't really worth solving and they can't see it. And so that's another problem, and that's all your problem. Okay, next question.
Okay, so...
Amen.
Well done, Chris, by the way.
Thank you.
That was nice. Okay, so a couple of questions about this topic. Both Cuts and Bertram have asked, there's a thin line when sharing what people need to know and being transparent. And Fabian, how do you find that balance? Where do you draw the line?
That's up to you and your business, right? I mean, with Everlane, people don't need to know how much the materials cost. People don't need to know any of that. But because they can draw the entire picture, it feels so much more transparent, right? And there's a lot of you guys out there that are really panicky about talking about money and how much you actually charge. And I totally get it. But it's more fear that someone else can copy you. And that doesn't matter, right? Like if someone can copy you, because you are your own brand. Like no one should be able to do exactly what you do in your way, right? So transparency really depends of, you go only as far as you think will benefit the overall story to gain trust. You don't need to go deeper than that.
Well, we're about to go super deep. Maybe not on this show. Whatever you guys want to know, we're going to tell you. Because I was inspired by your talk. And I'm going to try to see if we can live up to it. I'm going to tell everybody where every penny is spent, how we make money, how much money we make, how much our advertising campaign costs. It doesn't matter. I'm going to just lay it out on the table. But here's a question. I would think we're being set up right now, because as you guys may realize, that Fabian and I, even though we look different, we do share very similar kinds of thinking. We seem to have read the same books, drank the same Kool-Aid. But David Robertson wants to know, guys, what do you guys disagree about? Come on. Too much of this, like, what's going on here, So what do we disagree about, man?
Is it too much bromance?
Yeah, they just want us to fight a little bit. They want to hear the Vietnamese fight the Austrians. So
Where's the drama?
Let's
Give
do
us
it.
some drama.
Wow.
Let me get this. All right, round one.
Do you have a drama bell?
I did. I just hit you.
It
was
okay.
a bell fight.
All right.
So what do we disagree about? Why don't you challenge me on something?
Jeez. What do we disagree about?
Arts in Europe.
We agree on disagreeing.
I don't know.
We need people to fuel these thoughts.
That's right.
We can't just start disagreeing. I mean, that's like such a, how do you call it? I mean, we're live, so I'm not going to say it. I would have said the T word.
What is the T word?
Trumparian thought. But I'm not going to say
let's
that.
stay out of politics.
Did I just say that?
Yeah, let's stay out of politics.
I don't do
let's
that.
Let's talk about business or design.
I'm not transparent.
Or something else.
What do we disagree on? I really don't know. I need something to disagree on.
I have a thought here.
We get along.
Okay, so this is just maybe trying to uncover disagreement, but
thank you. I really appreciate that.
Chris,
negative reinforcement.
There's a question to both of you guys. Where, what is your purpose? What is your motivation behind doing what you are doing? What drives you at the end of the day?
Oh, I don't think we're gonna disagree. We all do it for the money. There's nothing else. No. No, right? I mean, we don't care about people. We don't care about mentoring, about sharing
this is all
ideologies.
Charade, guys. It really is.
No. Right?
So why don't you go first?
Well, I mean, that's pretty much it, right? For me, it's about finding a way that I can constantly absorb new problems and create new visions and, strategically infuse and visually and verbally infuse companies to become better companies, period, right? They don't need to be bigger. They just need to be better, right? They need to make more profit in a better way with giving people a better product and a better story along the way, and I just absolutely love that, and that's that goes back to mentoring, that goes back to creating the strategy, and that's to me that's very fulfilling. And of course, everyone wants to be reimbursed accordingly along the way, but That's why I do what I do. How about you, Chris? Disagree.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna
say it's not about the money at all for you.
It's not about the money. It's not
at
about,
all.
No. Okay. I'm gonna tell you guys the truth. So this is a little truth telling here. So here we go, guys. Truth is, for many years, I worked so that I could retire, so I could make enough money to provide for my family and for my children and to take care of my parents, and that was really the driving motivation. But I found, as I was getting into the second decade of working, I started to lose motivation because working for money will only take you so far. So I was just looking to get out, to be able to sell the business or find a partner. Some magical unicorn thing runs into the office and takes care of everything so I can just disappear, so I can go home and do the things that I love to do. And that was my mindset. And it was getting harder and harder to show up. But somewhere along the way, I found this passion for teaching, and I loved it, and I was able to connect with the community, you guys that are watching this online, and to build a real company about this. And really, right now, the fire that's in my heart is stronger and is burning brighter and hotter than it ever has burned. And it's because I'm on this gigantic mission. And the mission is not just to disrupt design education, but to disrupt education, period. And why do I say this? It's because when I was teaching at Art Center for over 15 years, I had a lot of students come to me kind of with all these baked in ideas as to what you can and can't do. So I felt like no matter what I taught them, they're going to revert to this old playbook. Now the playbook, I'm not going to blame just one entity because it's probably a myriad of sources. It could be your parents or maybe a sibling, a coach, some teacher in your life, somewhere in life you learn to kind of get rid of these thoughts that you had in terms of being an individual, to being creative, to taking risk, and to learn that failure is okay. All those things were kind of put inside your brain, and your operating system got corrupted. So the only way I'm going to be able to fix this is first to find a better way to teach design so that it's more efficient, it's more productive, and it's more cost effective and accessible by everybody around the entire planet. And you guys have heard me say this before. I think healthcare, just like education, should be a right to all people, no matter where you come from. It should not be the exclusive domain of the people who have means. And that's a problem, because then the rich just keep getting richer. So maybe in that way, I'm a little bit of an anarchist and maybe a socialist, I don't know, but I want to break the machine. Okay, that's my motivation.
Chris, leave the politics out. No healthcare talk. All right, let's keep this. Keep this fair
just
game.
About design.
But I also want to bring it back to the people listening, as far as like me talking about how strategy is so important to me and infusing people with like these new thoughts, and Chris talks about how he wants to change, the entire educational system for creative arts. And what does that have to do with you? Like, where do you find that fire? And I really believe strongly that there are maybe 80% or 50% of things that you do potentially as a designer, because I think a lot of you are designers, that you just don't actually like, right? What is it? It's the bookkeeping. What is it? It's production work, right? You start with something super exciting. You start with the logo and you're like, yeah, I'm on fire. I'm going to work all night, right? I'm going to do 20 logos. It's going to be great. And then everything thereafter kind of blows. Right? Like then you're done with the logo and you're like, okay, so now I'm going to have to do revisions and I'm going to have to build and I'm going to have conversations with the client, all that stuff. But instead of fixing every single thing along the way, maybe you can just drop some things off. And that's what I did, right? So I dropped off all production work. We don't do any more production work. It's just not what we do. We're not skilled production people. Like, we don't do anything outside of like top level, the name of a company, the logo of a company, but we don't touch anything when it comes down to the website, the brochure, the this and that, all these things that have tons of hurdles, and it's always going to be a nightmare, and clients are going to call you late in the evening and text you on the weekend, and you're like, how the hell did I create this life for me, right? So think about it. I mean, think about these kind of things that you don't like in your regular day, and then move it around to become, a bigger thinker about like, well, maybe I cut this out, and maybe I need to reposition myself a little bit too.
Mm-hmm. When I was telling my story, I was thinking about this. The thing that's always motivated me, it's not been about money. It's about being passionate about doing something. And when I went to study graphic design, I remember our chairman at that time, James Miho, at the Pasadena Art Center campus, not the European one, he would say, when you graduate school, if you're lucky, those of you that are lucky are going to get a job in design, and you're going to make $27,000 a year. And I knew right then and there, whoa, I am not doing this to get rich. I may be able to do this just to pay off my student loans at some point in my life, but it didn't matter to me because this is what I wanted to do. Short of being a professional skateboarder or a professional comic book artist, graphic design was going to be my third choice, and it wound up because of lack of skill and lack of skill. So I chose graphic design, and this is what I'm doing. And this is the thing that's motivated me. And now creating this channel, this platform to teach you guys on the different platforms that we talk to you on, the funny thing is the money seems to keep following me around. It's like I wasn't doing it in pursuit of that, but the future, I think next year will be a bigger company than Blind has ever been in the entire history of Blind, and we've been able to do it in 4 years. So my advice is if you do something that you're passionate about, that you love, that addresses a philosophical need, which is to change education and to provide people from all walks of life a higher quality piece of content, then the money will follow you. That's what I have to say about that.
Totally agreed. 100%.
Okay. All right. Okay, I'm going to ask you a little softer question here from the deck. The question is, do you fit in or stand out, and how so?
Well, I stand out, I think, because I'm trying to go against the grain even with my own life, right? You know, I lived in Malibu, and then I'm like, I'm going to close down my 18 people agency, and I'm going to move to Long Beach, which is a much smaller, place, and people don't do that, right? They don't say, hey, I'm going to send an email out to all my clients saying, here are 3 great agencies in LA that you can give your $40,000 a month retainer to because I'm going to change my business. So I feel like I always want to do something not that's different for the sake of being different, but I just don't want to be afraid to constantly sag, like go different directions whenever I feel like, like that's where my heart is. And I assume that would make me stand out. Yeah. I hope so.
Okay, good. I want to thank the Archimedes Effect for your donation. Thank you very much. Where's my... I can't find it. All right, last question. Last question on here, and then Greg, any other questions from YouTube or on Facebook? So here it is. What's the best compliment you've ever received?
Can we go back to the very beginning when Chris introduced me? I think you said something nice, and for Chris to say something nice to me, that's the best compliment I ever got.
Okay. Well, let me say so that we're gonna bookend this stream by saying Fabian has amazing hair. I'm super jealous. Look, guys, super jealous. And he's got amazing complexion. He's like, hey,
let me
keep
move
me cool
away
here.
a little bit more. Yeah, looking good. Real
looking good. The Austrian genetic pool is actually quite strong in you. So very good. And I just always admire people who are fluent in multiple languages, especially for you. English is not your first language, but you're writing a book. I'm also jealous of the fact that you've written not 1, but 2 books, and I have not even started on my book yet officially.
I'll be there when you need advice. Not that you will need it. But thank you. Yes, you made me blush yet again. Hence my complexion. It's always blush.
All right, those are the easy questions.
Yeah.
Greg, anything on Facebook or on YouTube?
One question just came in. This is from Massman Pro. The future. Do you think you can still hit 1 million subs by the end of the year?
Oh, you got to bring that up.
Transparency, Chris. Transparency.
No, we're not going to.
Drama.
Our current trajectory is not sending us down that path, and so we have to do very different things. And you will see very different pieces of content from us coming out really soon. So some of you guys might be shocked by it. One thing that we're going to do is we're going to make a rap video with Adam Sanborne, so that's going to be ridiculous. He's maybe I can play a little bit for you. So give me a second to find that. So we're going to make a rap video. We're going to produce other kinds of skits and things like that, because I think people just don't want to learn. They want to have fun too. And so we're going to have to go where the market's going. But we could use your help. If everybody here that's watching this live or after the fact can get 5 people to subscribe to this, we can actually get to our goal. But realistically, I think we're probably going to get to 450, 500 maybe, unless something miraculous happens.
Well, it just did after this episode. Boom.
Yes, thank you.
Don't ruin it with the rap videos, But just keep the growth going.
Yeah, okay. Greg, another question? Anything else?
Let's see. Okay, I have one more that I think is interesting, and maybe this is something you guys can disagree on. Have you ever taken on a job that you wouldn't necessarily take on, but you had to pay the bills? And what was that job?
Oh, boatloads. Oh, tons. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's why I changed my agency model, because it was just really hard to sustain an agency in today's age, right? Like having like 18 employees that, you know, need a great salary. And I mean, I took on a lot of projects that not that they went against my philosophy, right? Like I didn't work with the wrong type of clients. I just worked on the wrong type of projects for the wrong type of income, just to kind of like keep it going, right? And I did a lot of that in the last years of my agency. I did not enjoy it much, and that's also why I feel like a production type project is the wrong job. Some people might be really happy if they say, hey, you get $10,000 to do, you know, a brochure or something. And I'm like, this is a horrible job. To me, that's not right. So I would classify that as a job that I just had to take in order to, you know, keep things running. And I'm sure a lot of you have those, you know, financial issues in design. I mean, it changed. It changed a lot, right, in the last 10, 20 years. So it is tough sometimes. And that's also why Chris and I cannot shut up about agreeing on the thing that's called strategy, right? And you just, there is... Design in a way is a commodity product, right? I mean, I have to say that, right? Because you can get a logo for $5 anywhere. And then you can hire Chris and get a logo for, I don't know how many, tens of thousands of dollars, or you can hire us. And it's, right? So there's, for every price group, there's someone who offers it. So it's all about differentiation and it's all about strategy. But yes to the answer. Chris?
Yeah, of course. If you're in business and you want to have people work for you, you're going to take on projects that you don't personally love, from maybe an aesthetic point of view, but I don't think we've ever taken on a project where I fundamentally think, oh my God, I'm selling out my soul, I'm going to do this project regardless. I tend to just look at it more on a practical, pragmatic way, which is there are people here who depend on us to run a good, solid business so that they can show up every day and have a job with insurance and save some money and plan for the future. So if we kind of run it like we would if we were an artist, that would be very different. So I look at it like this, and there's a couple of people who say the same things. There's no such thing as bad clients, they're just bad designers. If you get an assignment to do a dog food commercial, make the most out of that, make that creative. Some of our best projects have come from extremely low budget projects or really, really tight deadlines. Now, some of you guys may know this, but we've done a couple of music videos, one of which was for a band called Gnarls Barkley, and it was the first digital single release. It hit #1 on the charts, and it was called Crazy. And Crazy had a crazy schedule. This was CeeLo Green and Danger Mouse doing Gnarls Barkley. And Crazy had 9 days from start to finish to produce. But it was a labor of love, and we were able to do great things with that. Now, that's the obvious thing. So, Greg, is there another thing?
That's all I got for now.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, I'm going to play you guys a couple of bars from option #1 for the song, guys. Here we go. Tell us if you like #1. Let's see if I can't play. This is like very trap, I believe. Can you guys hear that? All right, that's one option. Adam's been hard at work. I have option #2 for you guys in a little bit. You guys think I'm kidding around. I never kid. So here's another track here. Let me play this one. This one's hilarious.
Bass, Rand, Rodchenko, Lisitsky. Bass, Rand, Rodchenko, Lisitsky.
Wow.
Come on, dude.
This should be the theme music from now on.
Come on, guys.
100%.
We're having fun here.
100%.
I got another track here. Okay, he said he was phoning this one in, so we got to work on this one a little bit, you guys.
That's a good presentation skills. Yeah, I'm phoning this one in.
All right. Yeah, he said, okay, guys, I didn't feel like this one, but maybe I can work on it a little bit more. Shoot, it's not loading now. Yeah, give it a second, you guys.
There might be a reason.
Yeah, okay.
It's like I'm not gonna load this one.
All right, whatever. This one is not loading. I'll play it for you some other time, guys. What else we got going on? You know what? Maybe
we haven't disagreed yet.
I have a question coming up here.
Go
Let's see. No, I'm waiting for them to come through.
Okay.
Chris, please tell me you're going to be rapping over both those tracks.
I am. It is going to be me, you guys. It is going to be. Erica, why are we cutting to Fabian's face all the time? I know he's a good-looking guy, but...
Thanks, Erica.
Off camera. And
No,
he's
just
Slipping those 20s really made a
All right,
change.
here's the book, you guys.
Oh, there you go. Back to Chris.
Here's the book. Boom, boom. There you go. Yeah, bigger than this. All right. Is the question ready, guys? And I will be rapping, and there will be a whole thing. I don't even dance, so Sang's going to teach me how to dance, you guys. Boom. We have some funny skits coming up. My costume finally arrived, guys. It was a big production. I had actually traveled to Japan to pick up one of the accessories for my costume to make sure it was complete.
So the threat is real.
It is very real.
Wow.
I'm not
Okay.
messing around.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. You know, because we tried this, the old technique, which was let's give tons of value. Let's teach designers how to double their income, how to negotiate, how to eliminate or reduce a lot of the frustration that revolves around having client conversations. And they tune in a little bit. So I think if we make an ass out of ourselves, more people will tune in. And so I'm prepared to do whatever is necessary so that people will learn.
Chris, that's not one of my 8 traits. Number 9, make an ass of yourself.
Well,
and build your
hey.
company on it. People will love you.
There is a second edition of your book coming out, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
You can always add a number 9, but it
With a
ruins the
200-page
infinity symbol.
forward of Christo.
Yes.
Okay, so my computer just died, but the question just came up right before it turned off, and it was something along the lines of this person read an article about strategy actually being disrupted by technology.
What?
Yes.
That didn't make sense.
I don't know.
That's
but,
just-
And then your computer died, and it's like
yeah.
fake news.
Yeah. I don't know. Do we even need to respond to this? Maybe you don't even understand what strategy is. Being disrupted by tech? That didn't even make sense, you guys.
Well, someone has to create the strategy for the tech that disrupts now, don't they?
I don't know. Okay. What else we
But
got?
hey, I'm sure we're gonna be edutained on YouTube in the comments about that.
Oh, yeah.
They're gonna set us straight.
Okay, I will say this to Monica. She wants me to come to this Supernova Fest in Antwerpen. Would love to get somebody to send me an invite. Of course, I don't come for cheap, but send me the invite. What are you doing next? You got another talk coming up?
Yeah, I'm going there because I'm cheaper. So
Oh my God, compete on
it's
price?
really
Oh my
nice
God,
up there.
You're just a commodity, huh?
There's the drama.
Oh, perfect. We did it. We did it.
What you're going to do is you're going to find anything I was speaking and just undercut me and like, oh, we don't
That's
know
it.
what happened,
I'm
Chris.
going to be on the
We
call
decided-
right when I walk out of your office.
All right, let me get some information up. Maybe we should wrap this up in case, if there's nothing else. I don't want to drag this out.
Well,
Right?
his computer died, so
Yeah,
that's
computer
it.
literally
No more
died?
questions now.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do this, guys. I want to thank you for coming on the show. I have a little bit here to talk about, and we're going to wrap the show, okay? So thank you very much, sir,
Thanks,
for
Chris.
coming in and
Appreciate
just for
it. It
always
was
being
fun.
so generous and for sharing lots of great information. You guys, again, it's a great book. It's an easy read. Look big, like the 48-point type. You can't really see it, but whatever. And it's wonderful. It's only $15. He gave you 5 of the 8 tips that you can turn any boring, banal commodity brand into something that people admire and love. And that's what we all want. The book is called, Erica, Bigger Than This, and you guys can buy it on Amazon. We will include the link in the description notes, and we've been dropping it all throughout the comments, guys, so buy it. It's $15. Even if you, so if you don't like Amazon, you can go to Barnes & Noble, you can go to Hennessy and Ingalls if you're on the west side. You can, or it's actually not on the west side anymore, in downtown now. You can buy the book. You can go up and pick up a physical copy, and wherever else you might wind up giving away signed autographed copies, right?
That's what I do.
That's what you do. Okay, his name is Fabian Geyrhalter. He's at Finian.com, and if you want to hit him up on Twitter, which I think you're pretty active on Twitter, it's at Finian Insights, and on Instagram, it's _Finian_, which is super difficult. I strongly suggest you change that right away, sir. It's super hard to type in on an iPhone.
I lead with a visual there. I don't need the followers. They need to seek me, right?
Okay, very good. All right, guys, thank you very much. I'm going to take us out on the show.